Hello, everyone. Welcome to Brothers and Boss Battles, a video game showdown. Today, we will be having our Browdown episode regarding our category games you can finish in one night. And in this episode, Inside, Portal, and the Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe will be going up against each other. Who will come out on top? All right, who's everyone defending today in this Browdown episode, which I will explain to our audience in just a minute for those that don't know.
I here am defending Portal this time.
I, Tom, am defending Inside.
And I, Anthony, are defending the Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe. All right, for those that don't know, Brothers and Boss Battles, a video game showdown, is our podcast here, where me, Anthony, and my brothers Pete and Tom discuss video games, new and old. The way the show works is that we choose a genre or category of games, pick 3 games within that genre or category, and discuss those games. The 4th week of that grouping, we have our Browdown episode, like today, where we have a courtroom-style debate, each of us defending the games that we chose, while attacking the others and ultimately declaring a winner. All right, we told you what we're all about today and what we're doing. Let's get started, guys. What do you say?
Yeah, I'll start if you guys don't mind. Let's start with something that's kind of the meat and potatoes of the games. That's kind of the puzzles. I think, that we could all probably make the case that all these games are a little bit more than just a puzzle game. But figuring stuff out, I think, is a big part of these games. And I think Portal clearly did it best. So, first and foremost, the difficulty is challenging. It makes you feel accomplished when you complete it, but it's not, I made the point in the episode that pretty much everyone who's playing the game is beating the game. So it's not so hard where, you have to basically use a guide or spend, hours trying to make some life-changing discovery type of thing. So and inside puzzles, I can think of one or two maybe that made me think a little bit, but everything else is pretty basic. And you kind of just flowing through the game.
Didn't make you think?
I don't know.
No.
I would probably disagree with a little. We'll finish your point.
Okay, well then just to move on to Stanley Parable, a lot of it is just like changing up the sequence that you're doing. And if it's not that, it's like quote unquote figuring out that you have to stay in the broom closet for a long time and do nothing, or go up and down an elevator 3 or 4 times. Like kind of mindless things that isn't really that fun even when you do figure it out.
Yeah, I could jump in here. So you brought up difficulty level, and I mean, I will say for the most part, I think all these games were pretty balanced in that regard. But I do think that I would give the nod to Inside there, and mostly because I feel that the puzzles were challenging but not frustrating. And there were a lot of points in Portal where it's like there was a frustration factor. I felt like there were times where you knew what you had to do, but it was just difficult to execute it, because of controls or whatever.
No. What part of the controls were
When you
so
need
poor
to
that you
like
couldn't
fall
complete?
through a bunch of portals and then shoot it at the I'm talking about, I guess it was I think it was 18, chamber 18, right? That was one of the examples, but there were other times too where it's like I think it was also chamber 18, actually, the first part where like that door opens up at an angle and you have to shoot the portal on it and fall through a hole and go through the portal. It's like it was kind of obvious when that door popped, when you hit the switch and the door popped up at an angle. It's like, okay, yeah, I know, like I've seen this before.
Okay. So what was your frustration that you couldn't get through the whole thing? You pick up momentum?
Yeah, I think there were a lot of times where it was more about that falling through the hole at the proper time, and then you point to your control down, like you aim down, but then you like just slightly miss the hole, so you have to do it all over again.
Yeah, we talked about it. Once we figured out that you don't shoot the hole in advance and try to jump through it, but you
Yeah,
shoot
yeah.
it kind of as you're about to land. Then once you figure that out, then you hit it basically every time.
Yeah,
So
that's a little bit of a stretch, but
Yeah, no, I mean, I'll say, look, the Stanley Parable isn't necessarily a puzzle game. This isn't a puzzle game category. It's games you could finish in one night. So while,
yeah, but the aspect of figuring stuff out is a big aspect of all three games.
yeah,
If we want to talk about some gameplay elements, you know.
well, but for that, then the most things you could figure out, and I would say has the stuff that has the most variety, or the game that has the most variety in figuring things out, is the Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe, because there's just so many endings, some of which are easier to find or get than others. Even without the reassurance bucket endings, there's still around 19 or 20 endings that are unique to each other, and that allow exploration of different parts of the game's map, if you will. So while it's not puzzle per se, as far as the figuring stuff out, that really sort of, I think, exceeds the other two games. And then it's
Well,
just,
hold on. I mean, you and I both played Still Alive, and that had basically 40 chambers. So
yeah, but a lot of it
essentially
was
the
similar, and a
same.
lot of those
What about
early.
Stanley Parable doing exactly the same thing, but with a bucket?
But I said, even without the Ultra Deluxe Reassurance bucket part, there's still 20 different endings,
Okay,
and
there's 20 chambers and not counting the Still Alive portals,
so many.
chambers.
So many of those early ones, though, are literally just like getting your feet wet. It's like walk straight through a portal.
There's literally one where the narrator's saying he goes to the door on the left, and then you go in the door on the left, and you just do that for 4 minutes. Just follow what he says, and you get it. That's as mindless as it could be. Someone's telling you what to do.
I know, but then that's one ending. Like all of the other ones require some sort of not listening to the narrator, which is like counterintuitive and makes you think.
yeah, I mean, to both of your points, there is a lot of repetitive and reused mechanics in each of your games. The Stanley Parable, I mean,
Ultra Deluxe.
Ultra Deluxe edition. I mean, there's so many times where you're walking down the same hallway, getting to the same point, and then making one different decision. And then in Portal, it's
In
like,
Portal, you're just shooting portals all the time.
oh no. I mean, but like there are so many times where you have to reuse that mechanic of falling through a portal on the floor to come out at a higher spot and like propel yourself.
Putting a block on a switch,
Sure, yeah.
putting an energy ball to the receiver to power on something.
Well,
Lots of variety there.
He's just gonna say a bunch of different things that are like just slightly different.
yeah, the energy ball appears in like half of the chambers in the game.
Century robots. But inside, I mean,
Yes.
there was nothing to like there was nothing to play with, you know? It was kind of like you could jump, which didn't really help, and
There was
move a crate. And that's why the puzzles and navigating through the story was so simplistic.
no, that's not true. There was the mind control thing where you control your.
Yeah, which appeared like in 20 different parts of the game.
Nah, it wasn't that many. And then there's the point where you have to be locked into that little helmet thing, and then later on where you don't have to be to use the mind control. So that was pretty cool and varied.
The thing I liked about the Stanley Parable, though, is it kind of did have the most. I don't know, like Inside was very one note, I feel, throughout the whole time. If you count like both the gameplay, but also the graphics and just like the setup of it, very drab, very
So
minimal
we're moving
color,
on, right?
I guess. I mean, I'm kind of trying to tie it in, but
Oh, okay.
and also, Portal, maybe it I think showed its age a little bit, but was also, everything was relatively similar, level after level after level, even if the gameplay portions of it were different. But in Stanley Parable, well, there is a limited amount of gameplay mechanics. There are a bunch of different scenes for a game that, isn't like this huge game. You had your office, you had your apartment, you had the all of these various like behind the scenes kind of spaces like behind, meant to show like the development of a game. You had the sequel area, you had the
Museum.
epilogue, the museum. So, there's a lot of different spaces within that game that really wasn't present in the other games.
I think Inside had some varied scenery, but also I do want to say that, it presented a theme and it stuck to it, which is, so artistic choice that the developers made, and I think it was a good one. But there was like you start off here in like the woods, outside area.
Mhm.
You get to the, I don't know, like factory. Maybe it
Farm.
was, well, yeah, I'm not necessarily going in order, but I'm
Frame
just
by
gonna
frame.
list it. Yeah. My argument wasn't to list every progression, like the whole complete progression of the game, but my point is there is a logical progression of areas that you go to that differ from one another. Yeah, to tell a story.
Yeah, in Portal, what it did really well is that, and sorry, what was really cool in this regard was like, you're going through tests, so all the chambers are going to look the same, but then, at the end, they kind of flipped the script, and you were in the, like the basically part of the facility that was outside the chambers, and you were navigating like the halls and stuff like that until you finally got into the main room where the AI controlling stuff, or at least
Yeah, we'll just say right here
advising
before you
you.
continue, spoiler alerts too. It'll be a little less than our regular episodes, the prior three episodes we released on these games, and go back and check those out. You'll get our, completely unabridged and unaltered versions of those games. This episode we're trying to make arguments in favor of the game we chose, but go back to those episodes too. But they have spoilers, and this one may have light spoilers, so just be forewarned.
Yeah, thanks. I was trying to dance around it a little. But anyway, so I think, well, I think, and I hope that we could all agree that that aspect of it was really cool, and it did change it up in terms of like the setting. Stanley Parable, you do go to these other places, but the majority of it, I still feel like, is in the office, and like those, like the museum and the sequel and the new content area, those are all kind of the same in terms of what we're talking about here. So I don't know if it was really that much more varied than the other games.
Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't call it the same. Wasn't the same looking. It wasn't. We expressed how like that game was kind of trying to teach us something or make a point, perhaps more so than the others, since like that was the main focus of the Stanley Parable. And I think the messages in those areas are different. Like the stuff about the sequels being sort of a copy and paste sometimes, or the stories of like, it can be different, whether it's like you're the lonely worker in an office in the office setting. So I think it provided differences that made it more interesting. I'd like to move on to another point where I think the Stanley Parable Deluxe comes out on top, and that is the like the voice acting. So one of these games had no voice acting. That was Inside. So
Didn't need it.
Yeah, it
and
was a little boring.
and while Portal did have Gladys GLaDOS, speaking, and it was interesting. Kind of had that AI robotic, kind of creepy robot woman voice. I just think, and we all kind of said this, that the narrator in the Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe is top notch. It was a great performance by the voice actor, and it just added so much to the game because the game was meant to be have the sense of like a dark, dry humor to it, which was delivered impeccably by the voice actor, and through this narrator who was sort of narrating what you were doing, but also its own character, uh, sort of with its own agenda at times. So that just made for a very interesting part where there wasn't necessarily dialogue. It was really only the narrator who spoke, but it just added such a extra layer that was not really present. I mean, certainly not in Inside, and to a lesser extent in Portal.
The,
Oh, oh.
oh man, you stumped me here.
sad,
No,
sad, sad trombone
GLaDOS.
coming up now.
GLaDOS. I mean, first of all, the voice acting was great there, and it sounded like a computer. And we talked about even the things that I guess she was saying. It started off sort of innocent, and then kind of got more and more nefarious or aggressive, whatever you want to call it. And that commentary throughout the puzzles, throughout the game, it greatly enhanced the experience of just going through the puzzles, and it created the whole story element of Portal, which was awesome. And even a lot of the lines, maybe it's not as humorous as the Stanley Parable, but they weren't really trying to be. But a lot of the lines in Portal were also pretty funny, and the whole idea about the promise of cake at the end, which GLaDOS says repeatedly, that really enhanced the experience of playing the game. I don't think there's any doubt.
Because you thought they were going to be cake.
No, just
I know.
yes, but just the whole narration throughout the game.
Yeah, I mean, it was noticeably less. It was kind of really just
less. That's
the
true.
start and the end of each chamber.
Yeah, more or
Not,
less.
not really guiding you throughout the game. And therefore, there was a lot of silence in it. Didn't have a ton of music either.
Yeah,
I
well,
mean,
I'm glad you brought up the music because, you know,
it had the good ending credit. I get it.
yeah, but I want to really emphasize that song. It's like the other day I just like
Put
put
it
it
on.
on the internet to listen to. And, for a song written for a game to make you want to do that, I think that's like, gold star bonus points for sure.
I mean, it's a good one. I can't argue. But I don't know that saves it, as far as like the sound category is concerned.
I don't know. I really think it can. That's kind of like it's like a gaming memory, forever. Like, oh, that song in that game, you kind of always remember. That's pretty impactful.
I have nothing really. I mean, the song was good. I'm not gonna even
Yeah.
not gonna hide it.
I think that was the only game with a song.
Yeah, but there's music, swells and stuff in the others, but
Yeah. Well,
as far as an actual song that you
there's
can
sounds in the other games. Yeah.
go on the internet and play, then I guess,
But even
goes
the
to-
sounds themselves, you kind of felt like, I don't know, it was very mechanical with like the sound of the doors opening and stuff. And also, again, just the aspect of the voice. It sounded very, I don't know if you want to say futuristic, but AI forward kind of thing. So that really all added to the game.
but no British narration, so that's
So therefore,
a
it
strength.
lost.
Yeah, but I mean, speaking of sounds, I guess since we're on the topic, I mean, not necessarily related to voice acting or music, but I think the soundscape that was created for Inside really helped bring that feeling of, you know, dystopia and is that a word? I think it is. And kind of just like tenseness and is that a word? um and just kind of like feelings of panic and dread or whatever. Like, it kind of like
Are those words?
I think I'm confident on those ones. Um, but yeah, I mean, it really brought together the the feeling that they were going for with this game. I think the sounds played a big part in developing that atmosphere.
It did help the atmosphere. I'll give you that.
Yeah, I mean,
And
I think that can be said for
atmosphere is
all of
like
these.
really important in a game like that.
Not sure if the narration really helped with the atmosphere in Stanley Parable, but the sounds and stuff in the other two games did really help with the atmosphere.
Yeah, but there was sounds in Stanley Parable as
Yeah,
well. I
yeah,
mean,
no, there were
like,
sounds, yes.
no, but that like, well, there's a lot of sounds actually. I mean, there was like those things with the buzzers. That was meant to evoke a certain, like, it almost was meant to annoy you, like the buzzers and stuff. Like, I think that was so,
Well, mission accomplished.
and they were in fact annoying. And then there was like some of the more weirder stories did have like a certain like soundscape to them that made it tense or made it foreboding. There was I think you had mentioned in our episode regarding this, the like when you get to the Stanley Parable 2 and they make it all serious, like there's a certain music in the menu screen for that. And
Yeah, that's funny.
yeah, like it's all sort of satirical, but it's meant to convey certain things. And like like with anything else, the music and sound is important to that. And I think there was again like sort of a wide array of stuff in the Stanley Parable to do that.
All right, moving on.
Moving on.
Well, there's a topic I wanted to bring up, and it's about the game's conclusion and so how it ends and the epicness of the conclusion, stuff
And
like that.
what it makes you think about.
Yeah, yeah. You could throw that in if you want. So
Oh,
in Portal, it's the end game. I love that it's just not like an ending and then it's like someone's like, "Oh, that's a great ending." It's tied into the game where you're complete the chamber and then you're basically going to go into the fire and then you make an escape and then the music, oh, there's more music. And the music gets like more like ramped up and exciting and almost like an escape kind of sequence type of music, if you could imagine that. And then I mentioned you're kind of like in the backgrounds of the chambers in the facility, and then you get to a boss battle, which is totally surprising in the game, and pretty well executed in terms of gameplay of that. But then, okay, then to talk about the ending, and again, spoiler warning here, but like it's more, the ending is rewarding. It's not ambiguous, and it's a little more hopeful, but without being just like a happy ending, right? So you essentially blow up the facility, you defeat GLaDOS, and then you make it to the outside. And then I interpreted it as you're kind of being dragged back in.
So
And
how's that?
so, well, you escaped once, and now you're going to kind of have to try it again, kind of thing in Portal 2. And
Yes,
it was all kind of, it was a cool little story, but it was clear what was going on the whole time.
all right, I get what you're going for. Well, yeah, I mean, I'll give you that. And inside, the developers made a conscious decision to leave the story up for interpretation by the players. Um, an artistic choice that they made. And, a lot of artistic people make that choice throughout their
artistic.
careers, for careers of creating art. And I think it was cool. And they even give you an option of finding these hidden items throughout the game, which is cool. Like there's an exploratory aspect to the game, optional exploratory aspect to the game, that unlocks an alternate ending. So you got two endings.
Oh man, so this category inside is twice as good as Portal.
But then I guess Stanley Parable is good.
Are superior with 40 endings. But we kind of, I feel, getting off. We're getting
Hold
off
on,
the.
there's no endings. The tagline is "The end is never the end is
It's
never
never
the
the
end."
end. Exactly. So, which I'm gonna say, Pete, when you mentioned this category, well, this portion, like it really wasn't. I feel about the endings. It was more about what it teaches you, what it's trying to teach you, or what it's trying to say. So, whether there's one or two or 40 endings isn't necessarily the biggest question, but it's rather, what's the message? So I don't know. You guys didn't seem to answer that, but with the Stanley Parable, it's sort of in a funny, satirical parody way, talking about some of the issues that people may have with gamers, game development, games themselves, and that ranged from, the cut and paste sequel or the adding in random items or characters into the game that don't really make sense, but they're kind of like foisted on you. Like, and I'm referring to the reassurance bucket here. Um, maybe the drabness of having a boring job. Um, the whole thing about, whether games allow you to explore and be creative or if they're just sort of always bringing you back to the direct path that the developer wants you to be on. These are all interesting questions, and
These are
it's
all
cool.
important questions to answer and
Well, no,
messages to preach about video games.
but it's
Meanwhile,
cool.
I was just saying, meanwhile, you have Inside, which is like talking about real world problems like mind control and no, but like,
Blobs.
I mean, it's up to, like I said earlier, there is some interpretation involved, but I think, one of the themes is, this world where people who are in power will try to control people who have less power. So then, I mean, that's like a real kind of, and, like fighting back against that too. So, uh,
Yeah, but what was the conclusion there? That fighting back is, you know,
pointless.
pointless. Yeah. So that's what I was talking about, where it's like a little more hopeful, and just the feeling I got when playing Portal was like yes, I I did it, I escaped, and then it's kind of like, oh snap, here we go again, like kind of thing.
It's not hopeful. It's the same thing.
It is. It's
It's like
at least
saying
you feel like
that
you got a chance.
It's funny.
Inside, you didn't have a chance at the end.
I feel like the Stanley Parable addresses this whole portal thing. Where it's like you go through this whole game, quote unquote win, and then it's like, oh, I'm gonna drag your back for essentially the same type of things in the sequel. I haven't played the sequel, so that's just sort of speculation. But
To make your point.
well, I mean,
I mean, I hope it is. I hope it is very similar because that would be a whole lot of fun. We could also talk about replay value.
mhm.
So Tom, you mentioned in Inside, you complete the story, then you could go back and collect some of these items, whatever.
yeah,
Well,
yeah, for the secret alternate ending.
secret alternate ending, exactly. But
Mhm.
the game is so much about the experience. It's like, once you complete it, you're probably not going to go back for quite some time to play it again. And the Stanley Parable has a ton of replay value because if once you beat it once, you have 40 other things to beat.
Thank
No,
you.
no, but again, it's because it's so focused on the experience itself. Like once you do it, you never have to do the broom closet ending again once you do it once. But in Portal, there's like skills and stats to keep trying to enhance and get better, and they give you little medallions when you do if you complete the chambers in less steps or less portals or less time. So the
Yeah,
player wants to
that just
keep coming
becomes
back.
a memorized.
No, there's skill
Like,
involved too. It's not just memory for most of the chambers.
well, I mean, once you remember the solution, then it's like, okay, yeah, I could do this super fast. Like I said during the episode, I threw on a YouTube playthrough, and the person finished the game in like 40 minutes or something
Yeah, but
because they just remembered all the.
no. But there's a lot of chambers where you have timing and skill based things where one time you do it, you might beat it in 40 seconds, and the next time you might beat it in 35 seconds. And that's the point. You're trying to shave off time, off your run, which is really fun.
Yeah, I mean, I guess Portal, particularly the Still Alive version, has that aspect of it. And I guess I could concede that it is the most skill based of these games. So there is that part of replay value that can be seen. But I just think as far as like endings are concerned, which it kind of keeps making you want to go back. Like, I think the Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe comes out on top. And like, I'll say this, like, I beat Portal. I didn't really feel the need to go back. I mean, this is just anecdotally, and I guess just me, but like, whereas the Stanley Parable, I wanted to see these other endings, and some of them I wanted to figure out. Others I was like, just I had read about them in passing and just wanted to look them up and see how to do them or see someone else playing them. And so I think it kind of created this world where you want to experience the game, the Stanley Parable, the Deluxe, but also just like the world around it, and like I could watch someone else play it and still have fun watching it. And I think that's a sign of a good game, or at least a game that's providing a good experience.
That's a sign of a good TV show or something, not a good game. A game should be fun when you're playing it, not when you're watching.
I feel like you made that argument whilst defending another game too.
I think I
I
did, yeah.
yeah, yeah. No, I did.
Oh, you did?
I made that argument, and you basically had the same comment.
Oh,
But
okay.
I think it
Oh,
might have been Grim Fandango, actually.
no,
No, Stray, maybe. I think it was
maybe
Stray.
it was
It was
Stray.
early on. Go back, audience, check that out.
Yeah, but anyway, your point is very anecdotal because I had the exact opposite experience where I couldn't stop. I couldn't wait to stop playing Stanley Parable, and in Portal, I was very excited to play the Still Alive Chambers. So depends what you like.
All right. Any other points that either of you want to make in support of your games?
I think my case is rested.
Um,
I think my case is also rested.
all right. Then I will rest mine. And all right. So those that listen will know, but for those that haven't, the way we usually do this is we'll wait like 5-10 seconds, just have silence.
The best part of the episode, 10 seconds of silence.
And then we'll give you our actual rankings. What we really feel, and you'll kind of get a flavor of this if you listen back to the earlier episodes. If you kind of just want to, hear the arguments based on like each of us advocating for one game, and then let us know what you think. Talk to us. Make sure you check out Instagram or X at Bros Boss Battles. That's BROS Boss Battles. Let us know what you think your favorite is of this game. What order would you put them in? And let us know your thoughts on the arguments we made and the games themselves. But if you want to stick around a little bit longer and still talk to us on those sites, that's great. But if you want to hear our true opinions, go back both to the prior episodes and then also listen to us, in about 7 seconds, and we'll run through our list. All right. Who wants to kind of go forward on their list first? Does anyone want to say what their order they'd put these three games that you could beat in one night?
I could start. So I'll say my number three first, and that's going to be the Stanley Parable.
Ultra Deluxe.
Ultra Deluxe, of course. Yeah, I mean, I think the game had a cool concept, but it just didn't really deliver in terms of the fun factor for me. Now the other two I both enjoyed a great deal, so it was hard for me to choose which one I was going to go with as the number one. But I think I am going to go with Inside as my top choice. Yeah, to me it was just like a very complete game, and they were committed to a theme and they stuck with it the whole time, and the puzzles kind of fit the world and the story that they were creating with the game. So I thought that was a really good one. And Portal not far behind. I had a lot of fun going through those puzzles too. They were challenging, but also like not frustrating, which is important in a puzzle game for me.
All right, I'll go next actually. I thought I gave a an award-winning performance for my Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe in the earlier part of this Browdown, so I hope you all agree. But if I'm being honest, as far as my experience with these games, I would have to put the Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe as my third of these three games you could finish in one night. Well, it did have it was good as far as an experience was concerned is concerned. The narration, there were times where you laughed, times where you thought, times where you cried, but as far as a game is concerned, it was. I look, I recommended it in the episode, and I think it's worth playing, but I actually don't think you're going to go back to it a lot. And once you get the message, you get the message, and you may agree or disagree or whatever, but it's like, it's just more of the experience. So that's in third place for me. So I'm with Tom there. So with regard to the other two, I'm also with Tom with the fact that they are very close to each other. I thought the other two games were both very good in their own right, even though they are more along the puzzle line as opposed to the Stanley Parable. But different types of puzzles. Portal kind of had this unique system with the portals, whereas Inside kind of followed more of this common sort of puzzle gameplay where it was a puzzle platformer, with some other elements in it. And I like the story in both, like the Stanley Parable. Each of Portal and Inside had messages that they wanted to deliver on and use the vehicle of video games to do so. And I think we're successful in their attempts as well. Um, so again, while Portal and Inside were very close, I will disagree with Tom in the order. I actually will pick Portal first, and Inside second. I just thought Portal is so unique, and there were frustrating times as far as mechanics were concerned. I think it was just like the being a slightly older game with the controls were sometimes a little annoying, but I just think it was so unique of an idea for a puzzler, um, which was great, and it kind of built out this story where, you kind of first think you're just doing puzzles, but then you realize there's this more menacing background to everything, which also helped deliver on the story. And then, the awesome song in the credits at the end. So, a slight nod, but the nod to Portal for me. So let's see what Pete has to say. He will be essentially declaring a winner.
Ooh, I feel powerful. I'm glad. I echo a lot of the things you said on Stanley Parable. There's a lot to like, and there's also some things or a lot to not like about the game. But I do want to emphasize that I was surprised at just how much I was enjoying and how much I got into sort of the research aspect of the game, and even just watching someone else play it. Um, so there's something I think there's something to be said for that. Um, but for those who listen to our individual games episodes, I did not recommend Stanley Parable, so that's clearly number three for me. And the other two games, I think, like we're all kind of saying, are really or are both really close. Um, Let me start with Inside. This was a game where, with a little bit of luck, I could have beaten this in a night, and I'm not speaking to how short it was, but just how good it was, and I wanted to keep playing. Like I didn't want to put it down until I finished. And I don't really get that a lot in video games. Even games I'm really enjoying, I kind of play them in shorter spurts. So to really want to play that to completion in one sitting really speaks to how good the game was. And also in the episode, I mentioned how after playing this, I was very interested in playing, I guess, the spiritual predecessor, you would call it, Limbo. So that also speaks to how much I enjoy the game. Now for Portal, well, first of all, unique system that, or mechanic of puzzle solving that you mentioned would have been a good argument to make in the episode. But this was another game where after I completed the original, what is it, 19 chambers, I really just wanted to dive right into the extra content in the Still Alive game. So, I highly recommend both of these games, Inside and Portal. But to make a decision, it's really tough. But the game that's going to come out on top is Portal.
I thought I had a feeling you were going there. Well,
it's more Portal. Sorry, Portal is just more up my alley. It's really like, here's a puzzle, go solve it.
All right, well, there you have it. Portal comes out on top of this Browdown of games you could finish in one night, with Inside bringing up the second spot and the Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe coming in third. We hope you enjoyed this episode, our arguments, and the whole podcast in general. Come check us out on Instagram, X, Twitch, and YouTube at Bros Boss Battles. That's BROS Boss Battles. Check out our website, brothersandbossbattles.com. Make sure to like and subscribe wherever you get this podcast and wherever you listen to us. In 2 weeks, we'll be releasing a new episode, which will be the first of a new category. Hope to see you then. Until that time, take care.